from tanks. And we found in parts of northern Indiana County varying concentrations in brine up to 2,000 milligrams per liter. So it just takes a little of that to contaminate a water supply. And the problem was these production fluids weren't being contained on site. There were blowholes. This material was blown into a hole and allowed to infiltrate or run off the location. Some operators put septic tanks. So a group of us in IUP started working on this problem, and we got some publicity, much to the unlike of a couple producers, I'll say. But eventually the rules were changed that tanks had to be sent at every well that produced brine, and eventually every well does produce brine. There are very few in Indiana. There are over 3,000 wells. I can think maybe 5 I know don't produce production fluid. But now this has to be contained. Originally metal tanks were put out. Well, it turns out metal tanks corrode and rust, and it leaks out. So then fiberglass tanks are now required. They don't rust out. And better still are poly tanks that some of the best operators are using. These are the white tanks that someone takes a 30-30 and shoots a hole through it. It self-seals so it doesn't leak. All the production fluid has to be reported, taken and treated, and disposed of in an environmentally acceptable way. So this early pollution that occurred was not from the hydrofracking. Where I live in the woods, there are 82 wells that have been drilled on my property, of which 81 were hydrofracked. One was nitrogen fracked. And we have spring and stream water. That's what I live on. Water is my most precious commodity. And yet, we've had no contamination. Hydrofracking would be safe. It's what's done with the return fluids, and more importantly, the production fluids, the brine, from these formations.
Eric, you wanted to address?
Yeah, I think that you know, the professor gives some great history behind that, and also, you know, our member companies have really stepped up with their efforts to make this as the most safe process. There are no recorded you know, mishaps because of hydraulic fracturing you know, in anywhere, you know, but that's not what you hear sometimes. And I just want to explain, and we have a small video on our website, but you know, at the level that we're talking about with the aquifers, where that water is, where the drinking water that you come from, you know, that you drink, we're at 5 casings wide at that level. 5 layers of casing to protect everything that is inside of that casing from being you know, put into our drinking water. So there's 5 layers there. And that eventually goes down to 1 layer, and what goes down to 1 layer is a mile. And I don't know about you, but it's hard for me to encompass what a mile below us looks like. But if you've been to New York City and you've seen the Statue of Liberty, it's 17 statues of liberty standing on top of one another. That's how far below the earth we are. Now, I was at an event the other day, and a gentleman came up to me and tried to convince me that hydraulic fracturing fluid that was going down well A was coming back up well B 3 miles away. And the geologist on the other end of the table here will tell you that the Earth's surface down there does not allow that to happen. So you know, that is not, you know, that's not the case. The other thing, and I'm not sure if you mentioned specifically, but when the sites are reclaimed, and the only thing that you see left is kind of in that 1.5 acres that's left, is that well head, and then you normally see maybe 2 big tanks sitting there as well as part of the final site reclamation, and that's where that remaining wastewater can then filtrate into over the life expectancy of that well. So, you know, even after the producer is gone, you know, there still is containment efforts at that well site.
Okay. Tim and Mike, I think this next question will be effective. One of the things I was just thinking of is that the subtitle of this particular seminar is not Where Dreams Come True, but maybe for you guys, you might refute that a little bit. The question is, what are the pluses and the minuses to the landowner, the farmer, the property owner in leasing acreage for a Marcellus well?
Well, I would say, obviously there's the economic benefit. You know, the royalty payments that people are receiving are not anything by any means to shake a stick at. Some of the horizontal wells, there are people that are getting, even in today's low gas price, six-figure checks for the royalties from their wells. The companies that we do business with, they drill vertical wells. They're a little bit smaller. Well, actually, they're a lot smaller, but they produce a lot less gas. There's a little bit less surface disturbance associated with that. But it's a bit of a payoff. I mean, there is going to be a rig on the property. There could be some disturbance, but the important thing to remember is that that's all temporary. Compared to the lifespan of the well, which we estimate could be anywhere from 30 to 60 or 70 years worth of marketable gas being produced from that well, which would mean that in some areas, if the gas is suitable, it could be used in-house, as well as getting that royalty payment. Versus, for our vertical style of drilling, it takes us about a week to drill the well, a week to 10 days, about 12 hours to fracture. On the horizontal wells, everything's on a much larger scale, including the paycheck. But it's an amazing trade-off, in my estimation, for the amount of disturbance, the amount of time that you're going to have to deal with that rig being on the property, in relation to the economic benefit that you, the landowner or the oil and gas owner, would get from that.
There's a lot of farmers in this area too that depend on their farm and stuff for income. But this right here is just going to be an increase in revenue for them. A lot of them are getting old and it's hard to keep up with. And this will be a good thing for them to hopefully they can retire.
Console, of course, let's stay with Tim for just a moment. Console's business traditionally has been coal. A great expansion by Console Energy into the gas field in the last 6 months, really. Do you foresee that one day, will you just develop that for me? With coal and with natural gas, what's the ratio going to be in the end, do you think, for the energy company?
Well, I was formerly a Dominion personnel whenever Console bought us, and it's been a great thing for us as a company because we have very good technical people. Now that we're able to use our expertise, and we have a lot of acreage that we can develop, and Console's putting a lot of money into this to really make this go. In the next 3 or 4 years, we're really estimating tremendously.
Eric, you were going to say something?
Yeah, just back on the economic side of the question that was raised. One of the things that we're getting is that I don't own land, or I own land and I don't own the mineral rights to it, so I don't have an economic benefit. That is a misconception that's out there. I mean, the economic indicator and ripple effect for this is huge, because that person that does own land and has those lease payments that are royalty payments that are coming in. They're spending more money in the community, which is more jobs that are able to be impacted in some positive way. Also, as the production increases, our economic impact study just came out yesterday. That's able to decrease our utility bills across the state. And even if you think that your utility bill is going up in your personal home, what we're finding is that if that's the case, it may be a slower increase than what it would be if this industry wasn't here. So, it's important to realize that if you are not directly receiving a royalty payment check in the mail every 30 days from a company like Console or one of the others, that doesn't mean that you're not receiving an economic benefit from this industry.
And one of the numbers that I heard tossed around was, on average, every Pennsylvania family is going to be saving, or in last year saved about $1,000 per household, directly or indirectly, due to the abundance of shale gas and the depressed price that we're seeing right now due to that.
Any questions from you folks?